impact and income through the channel of entrepreneurship and do more good in the world. You will get access to all our amazing speakers today and walk away with great wisdom and inspiration so that you can level up yourself and your business to the next level. All right, everyone, let's level up. Welcome back to another amazing event here at the Life School. I'm so excited to be back with you and all the amazing speakers that we have lined up for you today. Again, before we jump right into our summit today, here at the Life School, we help purpose driven leaders build a legacy company that does good in the world through the operations of branding, marketing, sales, systems, and team. And again, so they can make amazing impact and align their purpose and profit. And then our vision here is to empower purpose driven business leaders to use their life's purpose through legacy entrepreneurship. And our mission finally is to become the most impactful global community in purposeful entrepreneurship. And then lastly, our values, our community connection, service, and contribution. And in today's summit, I have an amazing lineup of new guest experts that are going to share their journey with you and also their area of expertise in the attempt to actually give you really insightful takeaways, key takeaways that you can apply in your day to day life as a purpose driven leader. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming on and just slowly bringing on to my virtual stage all the amazing speakers that I'm so appreciative that are going to join us today, and we're going to learn more about them as well. So, I'm going to start with my first speaker today, Mallory Kristen. Mallory, thank you so much for finding time. Thank you again for coming on. And I would love to start with if you could share with our audience a few of the most meaningful moments that led you to the work that you're doing in the world today.
No pressure. Most meaningful moments. So first of all, I'm a self-love and unstuck yourself coach. That's what I do. And it was my own journey to self-love and really learning how to care for myself. Because we're raised in a world where if you're not being productive, you're wrong, essentially. And so it was my own journey with that that really led me here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when our personal experience then becomes, I guess, the catalyst for change for ourselves, but also it becomes the way that we give back to other people that might be looking for a similar solution to what we have also personally discovered. So I love that. So, Mallory, can you walk us through some of the things that you have learned in your journey to self love that you really find is the most impactful things that you'd like to share with people as well?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, the biggest aha I had around self care and self love was that I think there's this image that we get that it has to be bubble baths or massages or mani pedis. And it's not that it's not those things, it's just not only those things. And for me, when I realized that, like, that self love and self care really extends out to things such as boundaries, time management, living your life in accordance with your priorities and your values, that was a huge shift for me. And understanding that self care is more than just the bubble baths. I always talk about self care as being there's actually 8 different types. So, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, social, professional, practical, and financial self-care. So those are 8 types of self-care that I tend to talk about. And so when I realized that self-care was way more varied than I had initially understood, that changed everything. And especially making this shift toward, I was actually an 8th grade teacher for several years. And I made this shift from teaching into entrepreneurship. And that's when I had this big aha around, well, when you are your business, then taking care of yourself is taking care of your business. And I think that also got rid of a lot of the shame around putting myself first.
Yeah. I love that you share that, Mallory, because I also, for the longest, thought that it was just getting myself to do my nails and a massage was my definition of self-care. So I love how you identified all those different areas. So if you maybe can dive into each of those and just give us one key takeaway that we can learn around each of those self-care areas that you mentioned, I think that would be very great value add for our audience. Uh, I see that Mallory has had probably internet. Oh, there we are.
Hi, I'm back. Yay.
Yes,
I heard your ask about diving a little bit more into the 8. I just wasn't sure if we had time for that, so I wanted to make sure that we had
yes.
time.
So you heard me. That was purposely the question. If you can dive into each of those with maybe a sentence or two, not too deep into each, that people can just grab some really great nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with emotional self care. For most of us, that is like the biggest needle mover for many of us because we're taught not to feel because it takes away from what we do and how much we produce. And really, emotional self care is really anything that can help you feel your feelings and move your feelings through you and not stay stuck in any kind of emotional loop. I mentioned the bubble bath earlier, and it's like it's not that bubble bath isn't self-care. If you use that time to let your emotions run through, if you use that time to really dive into the experience and just be present and let your mind shut off, that's probably a really effective form of self-care for you. So I don't want to poo-poo bubble baths. I totally love bubble baths for that reason. But yeah, it's not the what we do, it's the how does it actually care for us that is important. So emotional self-care. Then there's mental self-care, and that's anything that can really turn off the mind, turn off that chatter that we tend to have that's organizing your to-do list and telling you what you need to do, and it's anything that can lessen that stress load. So it might look like journaling for you. It might look like a bubble bath for you because that helps you shut off the blah 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 that's going on. Um, and and it might look like meditation for you or prayer or something like that. But that could also go under spiritual self care, which I'll talk about next. So, spiritual self care is anything that connects you to something that's greater than yourself. So, you might follow a very specific religion or a very specific spiritual path. And so, it could look like reading a religious text, it could look like prayer, it could look like meditation, it could look like listening to podcasts by, religious or spiritual leaders that you respect. So that's spiritual self-care. Then there's physical self-care, and it's more than just nutrition and movement, although those are big parts of it. It's also doing whatever screenings you need to do with your doctors, going to your dentist's appointments, that kind of stuff. Anything and everything that goes into the care and keeping of your physical body. Bubble bath could totally fall in here too. So, so that's physical self-care. Social self-care. I've seen this out there a lot where it's like, stop telling people they need a self-care when what they need is a community. And I actually view social self-care as being a part of a community is part of self-care. um, so this could look like going out to events, reaching out to a friend, going for coffee, having phone calls. It could be all those things. And it could also be recognizing, hey, I've been extroverting a lot, and maybe it's time to go internal and introvert a little bit. And spend time with who I hope is your best friend, which is yourself. So that's social self-care. Professional self-care is anything that goes into making you better at whatever your career, job, vocation is. So um, it could be doing some sort of professional development. It could be scheduling meetings. It could be actually like scheduling time to catch up on emails and organize things. Or perhaps you have a team that's doing that for you, which is amazing. But if you don't, that would be all part of the professional self-care. It could be hiring a team if you are ready for that jump. So professional self-care. Practical self-care is, at the risk of sounding like a total millennial right now, it's all of the adulting things. So it's laundry, it's the dishes, it's the house, it's, it's getting the kids to the extracurricular activities, those types of things. And it's the things that people tend to not want to do. So I always talk about adding pleasure to anything and everything that may be not so pleasurable. So listen to music while you're folding the laundry, or watch that TV show while you're folding the laundry that you've always been wanting to get to, but you can't seem to get to. So that's practical self-care. And then there's financial self-care. And that can look like, keeping your books up to date, making sure that you're not overspending, double checking your accounts. And some people put that under practical self-care. I think it's so important that it actually deserves its own category, because how we care for ourselves, finances always comes into it. Like, do I want to spend this $200 on this massage therapist that I totally know is amazing? And would that be helpful for me? I mean, money enters into the equation. So I always put it as a separate category.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Very varied is kind of my point. There are as many ways to self-love as there are people in the world.
Absolutely. But I think it kind of helps because, our brain always likes pillars and something specific to kind of lean on. But yeah, I could see how the zone and food for thought, absolutely, for everyone to kind of know where they are in their journey and kind of what is it that they need most. And, really explaining that under pillars, I think it helps a lot of people kind of to categorize a lot of things that are going on in life, because sometimes it just seems like there's things that are happening all over the place in all the different areas besides our businesses as well. So thank you so much for all the amazing work you're doing, and thank you so much for sharing that so far and for being a brave soul to going first. But I always say that if you speak from the heart, there is no need for preparation, because the heart knows the message that needs to come out, especially if you do this work day to day. So thank you so much for everything you just shared with us so far.
Thank you.
All right, beautiful. Moving on to my next guest speaker, Kara Jean. Kara, thanks so much for coming on, and looking forward again to know you a little bit better. So if you can share also a few of the most meaningful moments, very proud to let you in the journey to doing the work that you're doing today.
Interestingly enough, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Already got such great, I was taking so many notes right there. That was so good. Also, I totally felt called out with a loud brain. Yes. Okay, so what led me to becoming an executive coach? I took my first dual certification course when I was 8 years old. I have been groomed for leadership my entire life. But I didn't learn about coaching until I worked for a company that they're a development company, but they're actually a restaurant. They just consider themselves a development company first and a restaurant second. So they use the metrics from a restaurant to do development within their company. It's amazing. They have a 70% retention rate. It's incredible. Yeah. It works. Development at every level matters. And okay. Trauma, trigger warning, suicide, just so everybody is prepared mentally. While I was really newly in management with this company, my brother committed suicide and absolutely shattered my reality. I had been prepared for my sister to be in that hard place because she's an actress in LA, and that's a rough life. But I wasn't prepared for my baby brother to go down that path, and it just blew up my world. But because I worked for this company who said they were people first, I got to experience what people first actually felt like. When the CEO called me up and said, I've heard what happened. I have 2 restaurants next to where your parents live. Do you want to move home? I'll make a position for you.
Wow.
Oh my God. And of course, to the self-care point, I immediately was like, no, I'm a superhuman. I can handle all of the feels and be an adult all the time all by myself. Which did not last. I had a hard day the next day. My mom had a hard day. I'm like, you idiot. You could literally be with her. So I had to call my boss up and be like, okay, I'm going to say this slow because I know I don't say it enough. You were more right than me. And yes, I would like to move home. And so they made that spot for me. And I got to dive into what leadership looks like, into emotional health, into the wellness that the tools that come with leadership are designed to help us have, because that's what they're there for. They're there to support us when we suddenly are taking on other people. It's enough to have to handle this hot mess, but you have to learn how to address that hot mess before you touch that hot mess, or you end up with a dumpster fire. And I got to really, really dive into that. I became a coach within the company. And then when I had my tiny human, I launched on my own.
Wow. What a journey. What a story, right? What a story. And I always say that our challenges, even though they're very hard when they actually happen, somehow they become part of our journey. They become, part of the way that we get to impact and help other people that might be going through similar things. So, wow. Well, Kara, of course, I will ask you, because I have an audience of seasoned entrepreneurs and CEOs, about loyalty and retention. So how can we become those leaders that attract and put people first, or really have a clear purpose in their company, so that they're putting the well-being and the fulfillment of their team as a priority when they make decisions to grow, to expand, to do business in the world?
Yeah. Retention, man, that is a hot topic right now, right? Engagement, big deal going on in the world right now. I'm going to share a statistic first before I share any tools, because I think that this really exemplifies what we're seeing happening in the workforce right now. 80% of businesses pooled absolutely believe that the fastest and healthiest path forward is to have development at every single level of the business. Of the same businesses pooled, only 5% have actually implemented development at every level. Yeah, so that's it. Develop your people. The same way that self-care is absolutely business care, team wellness is 100% business wellness. Ask the questions, ask more, say less, and find out about your people. If you want them to engage in what you're doing in your business so that you can grow and expand, you then need to engage with them so that they can develop and expand, because then you all grow together. And we keep thinking that, well, if we just hire the right people, even the right people need to be developed. It sounds simple because it is. But simple isn't easy, because you actually have to go out and do it. Logically, we know that this makes sense, but you have to do it. So hire development coaches. If you don't know what that looks like, bring on a buddy who can help you figure out what that looks like for you and your team.
Yeah. Tara, I love that, because it's just like anything, right? It's that saying, people don't pay attention until they see how much you care. I mean, if you want them to care for you, obviously you should care for them, right? So it's that equation that unfortunately is not so intuitive or organic for most businesses, right? But I'm glad that we are talking about this. And I also see this from my day-to-day work, that there's definitely a lot more conscious purpose-driven companies, and a lot of CEOs are definitely understanding the importance of this stuff. So amazing work. And Kara, I wanted to ask you more regarding the part of the wellness part. How is it that companies are instilling more practical things for their employees to kind of help them, in this aspect as well?
I love that. So actually it goes back to the self-care things that we were just talking about. Those same pillars apply to everyone. And when we talk about wellness, we often think of like well-being, but there's a mistake that we make, that we think, we want to die healthy, but the switch has to be, you want to live healthy. Same thing for your business, right? So the wellness has to be addressing situations that are happening now. It has to be planning for time later. If you need someone to put in extra shifts, can you trade with another business and get somebody to come clean their house for them? That would be huge. If you have to work over a long weekend, but you also know that somebody's delivering meals to your family and cleaning your living room, what a different experience would it be going into work, knowing that your person that you're supporting is equally supporting you in your life. And it's very accessible. Lots and lots of businesses are willing to do this trade because we all need to have this for our teams. We all need this collaboration, and they'll trade. You can trade meals, you can trade services, you can trade all kinds of levels of support. But it's really that's going to make the wellness a difference. It's treating the symptoms before there's a problem.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just treating people like family. And for me, business has always been that as well. Just taking care of people, and it's so so simple sometimes that it's the small things that actually make the biggest difference in our attention. And I know that Havila also just shared that she knows a CEO actually that pays cleaning service for all of their employees, and that actually has increased their attention to 70% and higher. So.
I mean, look at that number. If you're in business and all you had to do was pay for a cleaning service for your team to get that 70%, how much money are you actually saving? That's at minimum $4,000 a new hire. And that's not even counting the drop in productivity as you train or the challenges the team has adjusting to the dynamics of a new person. Worth it.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Well, amazing stuff. Kara, thank you so much. I love your energy. I'll come back to you at the end as well. Thank you so much for the amazing work you're doing out there in the world and all the value add that you just did just now. So I really appreciate it. Coming back to you again and moving on to my next speaker today, Dr. Elizabeth Wygant. Elizabeth, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. And I've learned so much already. Like, this is incredible.
Elizabeth, I would love to ask you the same question. I know we've connected prior, so I'm very familiar with your work, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to our community as well. A few of the most meaningful moments that led you to the work that you're doing today.
Yes, so hi everyone. I am Dr. Elizabeth Wygant. I am known as the Women's Hormone Health Coach. And I empower ambitious women to reclaim their vitality through optimized wellness. So what does this all mean and how did I get here? I actually started as a doctor of pharmacy and I became a manager right away once I graduated pharmacy school. Realized I was not aligned with the practice of modern medicine. And very soon after becoming a manager, I became pregnant back to back with my two girls. And what ended up happening to me was I hit a really low point in my life. I had traumatic birth experiences with both of my daughters. I wasn't really being fully supported as a mother in my work environment. And I ended up in the hospital. I landed myself in the hospital. I was sick. I was stressed. I was burned out. And it was kind of at that point where I had an awakening and realized, one, I'm not serving in my full purpose. I'm a mother of two daughters, and the experiences that I had with my employer and through labor and delivery to some extent, I knew that these things were happening to a lesser or greater extent all over the world. And women have been going through this for centuries, right? And I had to be a part of the change because I'm a mother of two daughters. So I had all of these realizations come up for me. And I knew that I had to be a part of this shift and really empowering women to tap back into their true inner strength, their inner power, and reclaiming that femininity that has been lost. So that's kind of like a very brief snippet of how I got into doing what I'm doing. But I ended up having to heal my body first in order to take that step and take a bet on myself to launch my business and say, hey, if this is working for me with what I'm doing to help do the inner work, right? Like taking care of mind, body, and spirit, this needs to be shared all over. So that's kind of like my little snippet, little snapshot of what it is that led me to what I do today.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's your vocation. That's your purpose. Good for you for listening to that. More of us are listening to that, right? I think we all can absolutely relate to what you just said with your story as well. Awesome, Elizabeth. I would love to for you to share some of the most, I guess, fundamentals, most important pieces of your work that we need to know a lot around hormonal health.
Yeah.
That you really feel that you kind of repeat over and over with kind of working with your clients that you could share with us today as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about something that, like, we've talked about it before, Elona, and this is something that probably many of us have not heard of, or many of you have not heard of, but we have two biological clocks as women. So we have a circadian rhythm, which is the sleep-wake cycle. That's basically, how you're waking up and going to bed, but also basically how you're running your life. It's where you are operating in this 24-hour cycle of wake up, go to work, do the thing, send out the email, become incredibly exhausted throughout the day with all of the things that you're doing. And then you just kind of plop on the couch at the end of the day, tired, worn out, and just ready to go to bed. And operating in that vicious cycle over and over again. So that's your circadian rhythm. That doesn't work well for us ladies. And that's why you're probably, if you haven't noticed, seeing this trend of women leaving the workforce at such a high rate. So this is one of the leading issues. That's how modern society operates. That's how businesses operate primarily in our modern world. The other biological clock is called the infradian rhythm. And this infradian rhythm actually is only for us ladies, and that's it. So this ties into your hormonal cycle. It is a roughly 28-day cycle that you go through, and it pairs up with each phase of your menstrual cycle. So there's 4 phases. You have your menstrual cycle, of course, and then you have follicular, you have ovulatory, and then you have luteal. And what I'm going to talk about here is all about energy preservation. So we just talked about circadian rhythm and how it's kind of like this very much hustle culture oriented rhythm. What I'm going to share with you is something where we can really tap into our femininity and bring out better results in our career and in our business through this energy preservation. So I'm going to walk you through the 4 phases and how to navigate your work life and optimize things. So we'll start with the menstrual phase. So this phase, really, if you're looking at it from a perspective of seasons, even, this is a phase of an internal winter. It's a slowing down phase. So at this point in your month, you want to map it out to where you're resting, reflecting, and just taking time to yourself. I call it rest, reset, reflect. So it's a great time to journal. Your intuition is higher during this time. Your brain is actually communicating, like both sides of your brain, left and right, are communicating better than any other time of the month. And it's a really good time to just evaluate things like what's going on in your personal life, what's going on in your business, in your career, what could be done better. The other shift that you'll make into your next phase is going to be a shift where you're going from a low energy state in the menstrual phase, moving up to a little bit of a higher energy state here. And in order to preserve that, this is where you are going to look at your calendar and map out your month. I want you to look at, okay, emails, projects, presentations, networking events. Where can those fit in? And when does this all need to be done? When does this all need to be accomplished, right? This is your follicular phase, okay? That helps you take what you've done from the menstrual phase on that reflection and begin implementing and plugging things into your work life, into your personal life even. And then you move into the ovulatory phase. This is the phase, it's a social butterfly phase. So once you've taken a look at your calendar, this is a great time to actually do the presentations, projects, and networking because you are more apt to be social. You want to interact with other people. If you think about it from a perspective of like human interaction, it's when women are wanting to be with their partner, right? So this is a time when you're fertile. This is a time when you're social, okay? And that is again a great time to have like those conversations about, you know, different business plans, different projects, presentations. And then lastly, you move into your luteal phase. So this phase, this is where you're going from that really high energy state of the ovulatory phase and moving into a lower energy state. So this is where you're going to want to get shit done. This is the phase that you take everything that you've done from this whole month and tie it up in a pretty bow, and you just get things completed so that you can move again into the menstrual phase of that rest, reset, and reflect. So it's a lot to go through. There are definitely some things that I could add in here, but each phase, again, it correlates to energy levels, it correlates to hormonal levels, and it correlates to internal seasons as well. So yes.
Elizabeth, you are, I'm always learning so much from you, taking notes all the time. But honestly, I feel like each of these events is like its own masterclass because all of you are experts and you bring in so much knowledge and experience to the table. So, wow, just wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, at the end, you all could share resources with our audience where they can learn more about all these things if it just feels like, oh my gosh, it's just a lot of information. And a lot of us might need to get some practical resources to kind of wrap our mind around it. But beautiful, beautiful work. You love the mission, the work you do. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing that.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Moving on to my next amazing guest speaker, Christine Mallet, aka Sassy Christine. Welcome.
Thank you. I am coming to you live, which is an actual barn. I do have some wind today. Internet has been in and out, so I do apologize. Let me know if you miss anything. So, and thank you for having me.
You are so loud and clear, and I love also your voice and also all the amazing things that you're doing out there. So, Christine, can you share a few of the most meaningful moments in your journey that led you to what you're doing now?
Well, I guess I should start with what I'm doing. So, Sassy is, and I love everything that I have heard. So, Sassy is an acronym that I came up with many, many years ago, but I have incorporated it into my coaching, my podcast. Sassy is strong, assertive, smart, sexy, and independent. And I believe that every woman has this. We all have it here. You can see it. It shines bright. You go, girl, absolutely. But a woman of abuse, which is my specialty, her sassy got squashed. It got almost extinguished. My experience, I help that find and reignite and relight her sassy so that she can be her full, true, authentic self. That's what I do.
I love that. I love that. So let's dive into your framework, right? I love your framework. Sweet, simple, straight to the point. And I think it's definitely the core of what I guess most women that might be in those similar situations might go through. But even if not, right, I think we all need to remind ourselves sometimes of all those attributes and qualities that you talked about. So give us a little more detail into your framework that you find will add value to this conversation.
Where do I start? So my mission, I guess let me start there. My mission is, and it's a big one, and everybody, I either get two schools of thought, you go girl, or, oh, that'll never happen. My mission is to end abuse. We have the capability to do it. We can do it. So my mission is totally end abuse. My podcast is all about ending abuse and educating that woman of abuse, no matter what stage of abuse she's in. There are 3 stages of abuse. Stage 1, and there's an acronym for each one. I love acronyms. I don't know why. Stage 1 is feuds, and that's basically where you're still in the thick of it. You've got blinders on. You cannot see any way out. All you want to do is survive day to day. Stage 2, you get out and you're out of the abusive situation or toxic relationship. And there are several different 5 actually forms of abuse that I go in on my podcast in great detail on all 5 of those. Physical, mental, spiritual, the emotional and the psychological. So stage 2 is limbo, and it pretty much tells you where you're at. Your brain goes, where do I go from here? What do I do? What am I supposed to do? What is my calling? What's my purpose? And that's where the sassy really comes in. I help those women in stage 2. I help stage 1 women without a doubt, because we're all in that. I've been there, done that. Stage 2, I help that woman be able to find herself, find her inner soul. Yeah, that self-care that we spoke about earlier, that is so important. That is so important. You ladies need to reach out to me, because my audience needs to hear about all those different ways to self-care and what it means, and where we go. Stage 3 is what I call uneffable with the bull. I can't curse. I won't curse. So stage 3 is where you come into your full sassy. You find out who you are, and you go and explore and take that passion and live the life that you are supposed to live. That's stage 3. There's a cuss word in there, but I won't say it. I think y'all get it.
Christine, I love how you have actually articulated all those stages, because it's so true. If someone is at that first stage, they can't even think of the next, two stages. And it's a progression of evolvement of, a woman really coming to come in her own, and trying to figure that a lot of the self-love part out that, is probably missing from her life for a long time. So love the work you do. It's truly, truly a mission. You definitely will share about your podcast at the end as well. So stick around. Thank you so much for coming on, and thanks so much for sharing what you just did.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Thanks again. And moving on to my next amazing guest speaker, Christelle Biga. I recently connected with Christelle. I love her energy, and I love the work that she's doing out there in the world. So Christelle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Elona. Thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. I've learned so much so far.
It is our pleasure to have you. And the same question for you, Christelle. Share a few of the most meaningful moments in your journey.
Yes, it took me a hot minute to get to understand really what my purpose was. It started when I was a little girl growing up in Cameroon. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not originally from the US. So I grew up in Cameroon, and I remember sometimes walking on the street, seeing complete strangers, and wonder, is this person happy? And I would catch myself and say, why do you care? You don't even know them. I grew up a little bit more, and in my late teens, I started noticing people like Rihanna, who had a big influence in my generation, and Oprah. And I was just sometimes going to bed and thinking, I wish I had that level of visibility and influence. That way, I will be able to really help people change their lives and just be happy. And then again, my brain will kick in and say, listen, there's only one Oprah, and you don't even sing. So there is no way you're the next Rihanna. So I will sleep on that. And eventually, years later, I decided, you know what? Let me do something about this longing I have in my heart. And what is the best place in the world where I can actually make that happen? That I bought into the American dream. Anything is possible. Anybody can become anything. So I said, okay, let's go to the US. So 2015, I decided to move to the US. Could barely speak English at the time. Had no family or friends here to wait for me at the airport or anything. And I landed at LAX, got arrested by an immigration officer who accused me of coming here to work as a prostitute and tried to get me deported. So I ended up in a detention center where I spent 9 months before winning my case. And when I left from that place, as you can imagine, it was traumatic enough for me to not even want to think about it, talk about it, or anything like that. I just say, I just need to move on with my life. So I got a job at LAX, yes, the same airport. And in 2019, at the end of the year, I decided, you know what, because of all the trainings that I've taken in between the coaching programs, I saw, okay, coaching was a path that I wanted to follow. So I decided to go full time in my coaching business, and I wanted to use stages, speaking, to promote it. And getting on podcasts was one of the biggest way for me to do that. So I started getting on podcasts, and in April 2020, if anybody remembers what was going on at that period, you will remember that we were getting into the fun of the lockdowns and everything that was going on. Everybody was crazy. People didn't know what to expect, what was coming. And I was on a podcast, and I found myself sharing that story. When I say I found myself, it's because I didn't plan to. I didn't know I was going to share that story. I didn't even know I was ready to share that story. but it was such a perfect timing because it was a moment where people needed to hear a message of hope. So my story was just a way for me to remind them that sometimes things look good on paper. You have all your ducks in a row. You think you have done everything right. You have checked all the boxes. Just that I thought having a visa was enough. And life happens. Just right now, we're getting into this pandemic thing. Nobody saw that coming, but you have what it takes to see it through. Don't just give up. So that story, I heard the feedback that I got from that interview was so huge that I decided not only to make that my signature story, but I realized that, oh my gosh, this is a powerful way to actually do what my little girl has always been wondering. How can you worry about complete strangers' happiness? There is actually a way to reach out to thousands of complete strangers and help them just a little bit. So I've got into more podcasts throughout the years. And this year, when I said it took me a hot minute to realize what was actually my purpose, it finally connected. I'm only one person. I'm only one expert. I can only help so many people. But there are experts out there who can help people. Look, just like the amazing speakers that I've heard so far, can help people improve their healthcare, their self care, their i- i- relationship with themselves, the relationship with their employees, with their company. All those peoples have skills and gifts that can improve people's lives. And I cannot do all those things. I wish I could, but I can't. So how about I help those experts reach out to those thousands of people who need them? So that's how my agency Exposure Maven was born, to just give the opportunity to experts to be on big podcasts, because the bigger the audience, the bigger the impact. So let's do it together. That's just my vision. Let's impact as many people as possible. Let's help as many people as possible just be happier because their relationship got better, their health got better, their mental health got better, their lives got better. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Wow. Wow. I got some goosebumps. I love it. So, Christelle, share with us a few, I guess, a few of the things that you share with your clients around getting on these podcasts that have that audience where we can really create a big impact and we can focus more on the quality of our message and really reach a lot of people that might need the help that we can provide.
Yes, thank you. Definitely. First of all, it's a done for you service. So it's not really me coaching my clients on doing it. I do it for them because, again, they are change makers. So I believe they already have a business going on. They have clients to serve. So I don't want to give them one more thing to do. They might not do it. But remember, my goal is really to help as many people to be happy by changing their lives. So I do it for my clients. And the process is really simple. In case anyone listening or watching wants to do it themselves, this is the process. You first want to identify the right shows for you. When I say the right shows, the shows that are within your niche, meaning those shows have the audience that could actually benefit from the message that you have to share. And you want to double check the audience of that show. How big is the show? For my signature offer is to get my clients on high profile podcasts, meaning podcasts that I listen to the top 10%. Why? It's not just to be fancy, but again, the bigger the audience, the bigger the impact. So one way you can use to verify the ranking of a show, I'm just gonna say it here. You go on listennotes.com. It's a website, it's completely free. You go there, you type a name, and I invite you, as you're listening or watching to this, to just take your phone or whatever and go on Listen Notes right now, type a name of your favorite podcast, and just check the ranking. If that show is ranked at least in the top 10% or higher, you will see its ranking. If it's not there yet, you will not see a ranking. So that's just one step to start showing you, okay, do I want to actually invest my time? Because again, you have a business to run. So do I actually want to invest my time here, or is it going to be a good marketing strategy for me to be on this show? Okay, the audience is large enough, so I have a good chance to reach as many people as possible, thousands of people, because usually that's the size of listenership of those type of shows. So once you have identified the show, the next step is, of course, to find the application process. Do they have an application form? Usually, they don't have that on their website anymore because they are flooded with people wanting to be on those shows. So, you want to create a relationship with the host. That's the best way to do that. and really show them the value that you can bring to their audience. Because remember, yes, you want to reach their audience, you want to put your message out there and serve as many people as possible, but also remember that the host has a mission. They want to serve their audience as well, their listeners. So show them what you can bring to the table, the value that you can actually provide to the audience. It's not just about telling them how big and smart you are. What are you going to do for their listeners? That's important. Once you have that nailed down, if they have an email address that you need to send a pitch to, make it clear in in your pitch that you are not only an expert, but you have something that you have for their audience. Meaning you have to show them that you know their audience, you know their show. So because right now we know AI is big, people can go on ChatGPT and craft pitches, which is amazing. But the personal touch, you have to bring it on. ChatGPT will never listen to a podcast. So you have to show the host that you actually know their show. You are not just copying and pasting the same pitch and sending out there to all the hosts. So add that personal touch. That will give you more chance to be picked as the next guest on on their show. And once you get there during delivering your interview, make sure you go there to create connections. Again, connection with the listeners and connections with the host, because the listeners, they don't know you, and you can say as how smart you are and how revolutionary your product or service is. If they don't connect with you at a human level, they will not follow you, they will not want to learn more about you after the interview. So how do you do that? By sharing stories that connect with them, that relate to them. When you're answering your questions, how do you make them nod as they're listening in their house? Or maybe someone was saying you can listen to a podcast as you're doing your laundry. They are doing their laundry, listening to you. Are they nodding? Do you call them out? Sometimes refer to them. Even you are just talking with the host, mention the listeners, refer to them so they feel invited in that conversation. Once you're able to create that connection, imagine you have probably hundreds of thousands of people listening to you. So how many of them could eventually say, you know what, I like this person, I like their vibe, I like their energy, and I can relate to the story they shared. Where is their website? Now they're coming to find out more about you. And if you share the freebie, they will now go and maybe download it because they want more of you. And now you have a chance to serve more people, because eventually they will become clients. So that's really the process how to get on those shows.
Christelle, wow. Well, I can tell you're so passionate, and the best of both worlds is that you do it for people. So, oh my gosh. So, thank you so much for sharing that as well. I really
Thank
appreciate it. And I'm also going to come back at you to you at the end so people can learn more information around where is it that they can connect with you. Moving on, I have four amazing speakers left until the end of this event today, and I'm looking forward to introducing you to our amazing community expert, actually Kenny Ingersoll, and to make this even more purposeful and utilize our time wisely. I would love for you all to share. So, Kenny, if you could start with the work that you're doing and also a few of the most foundational pieces around the framework that you utilize with your clients that you find that will be helpful for our audience as well. So, Kenny, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I love what I've been hearing, and it all intertwines so well. This piece overlaps to this piece, and this piece helps this piece, and I love it. And it ties right into what I do. Mallory's talking about financial well-being and stuff, and that's what clicked with me is it finally dawned on me. I wish I'd known, if I'd only known then what I know now. And that's one of my purposes, is that, and also creating memorable experiences. I want, it's like ice cream. You want everybody to have some, have some ice cream. It's delicious. Have some of this. I wish I'd have known about this 25 years ago. I could have helped more people, and I don't want you to have that same 25-year mistake that I did. Take this and share it and spread it, And that's, between that and financial services is what clicked with me. That's the vehicle that I use, helping people understand how money works, what tools they have access to, the small tweaks, so they can start to learn, and it's not a foreign language to them anymore. And they can, if I do this over here a little bit differently, then I'll have a much better income, or just a slight change in mindset. For example, I talked on previously about budgeting. It's commonly misconcepted that it's so restricting. You're in this budget, but in reality, this budget can be what you want it to be. If you want this budget to incorporate travel and a bigger house, then put it in that budget. It's a short-term loss, not really loss, but loss for the long-term gain. You got to look at the big picture when it comes to finances. So that's my passion. I wish I'd have known about this 30 years ago.
Yeah, and that becomes now your vocation. Thank you so much, Kenny, for sharing that and your passion with us thus far as well. Beautiful. Moving on to my next guest speaker, Pearl Sharenza. Pearl, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Pearl Sharenza, and my story started because 2015, I didn't know who I was. After taking a 6-week identity and destiny course, I still couldn't say who I was. I was a mom, wife, all the titles, and I needed to go on a journey to figure out who I was. So in doing so, I realized I'm a people pleaser addict. And so I had to overcome that. And I did something as simple as taking this rock and putting it in my pocket and moving it 3 times a day by learning to say no to something so that I was showing up to say yes to myself. And through that method, I created the Shiro League and our Shiro method. And Shiro is somebody, as we learn to step and understand our mental fitness, understanding our saboteurs that show up, whether you're a people pleaser, you're a risk taker, those areas of your life that mentally you're telling yourself you're not worthy, you don't deserve it. Self-care time, what's that? That's guilty. People think you're selfish. We work through that to help you understand that you matter. And you have to show up first because you're with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when you don't, then you become stressed. Making a grilled cheese sandwich will freak you out. So in our Shiro method, we teach you how to become stronger, happier, empowered, that radiant self, and that original person who shows up. Because as you start putting the steps into place that we have in our mental fitness course, you learn that when you do say no to others, that strength comes out. You feel happier inside. You're empowered to go after your dreams, your visions. Last year, July 25th, 2022, I lost my son at 25 years old. He saw me live my life as a Shiro, and I needed to continue to do so. So by saying yes, continue to myself and not going in my room and sitting in a blanket and crying my life away, I became empowered to continue living that Shiro life. And as I did that, that radiance that was already sparkled there before he passed continued to shine. And then I became that original self that I've always been again. And I stepped into that because I believe each one of us who are sitting here on this panel and listening to us today have a goal that was when we were developed, whoever you believe in, but I believe when God created me, he said, these are your talents, Pearl. You need to do something with them. And if we don't, we cheat ourselves. But if every one of these folks on this panel did not come and share their story, we would not have learned from each and every one of them. So I'm going to encourage you to find your inner Shiro, to go out and reach out to somebody, whether it's a coach or a mentor, and ask for help so that you can find harmony in taking a bath while you're working on yourself. You can find that space of saying, I matter, and saying yes is just as good as saying no. So my name is Pearl Sharenza, and I hope you find your inner Pearl today.
Wow. Say no to say yes to you. Wow. Beautiful, powerful work. Thank you so much, Pearl, for sharing that. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Danita Williams. Danita, you are up next. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, everyone. It's glad to be here, and I definitely align to all of the things that we've been discussing. I'm a consultant. My company is DMW Consultants. I have over 30 years of corporate market experience where I help companies design and implement state-of-the-art compensation programs. Because whether you're an established company, brick and mortar, online, you're a startup, small, medium, or large company, I help employers become an employer of choice. Because when you pay your employees competitively, appropriately, that aligns to what some of the other speakers were talking about being able to budget, the financial care. You don't have to worry, have the stresses of not making enough to just have a basic standard of living and then having an enjoyable quality of life. So one of the things that I learned through my journey is that this is, my passion. For example, if someone is making $40,000, they should not be paid a penny less. And I consider myself an employee advocate. So whether you're a startup or you're a large conglomerate global company, that's what I can do to make sure that your programs are competitive, they're compliant. You can retain, attract, and motivate current employees, bring in key talent, because when employees leave the organization, that's knowledge walking out of the door without any type of transition plan. You spend more money when you have that start and stop of trying to hire. Where are we sourcing from? How long is this position going to open? Where's the current work going to? So companies hemorrhage a lot of money, and I help to fill in the gaps, create programs if you have nothing in place. So I see it as like a piece of Swiss cheese. Let me fill in those holes for you, because at the end of the day, that is what helps organizations grow and be financially stable when you have key talent and they are being paid a competitive wage, because everybody's competing for the same talent these days. And if you want to stop the churn, stop the hemorrhaging, and become an employer of choice, those are the services that I offer.
Wow, Danita, beautiful alignment. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I could absolutely see how much value you also add to the world with the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing. And then my last but not least speaker for this event is going to be Havila. Havila, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Havila. My company is Have Strategy, and I kind of tie a nice little bow onto like what 4 people here do. So I love all of it, and it's fantastic. So what I do is I help companies create raving fan employees so they can have raving fan customers, build revenue, and increase profit. So who isn't in business to build revenue and increase profit, right? But our companies don't exist without our people. People are your company. And so you have to know how to not only attract them, but bring them in. And so I start with the hiring process, and we start at the hiring, and we start with making that candidate, I call it your future employee experience. Even if you don't hire them in this cycle, they become the people you go back to and say, hey, you had such a good experience in our last experience and you didn't get hired, but now we have a place and we'd like to bring you on. And they say yes. And that's so important. And then we work on retention. And I call this my next level people process. We work on retention. And so all the things that Danita just said are so important. You have to pay your people. You have to pay them well. You have to create wellness for them. You have to give them development opportunities, career paths within your company. And to my leaders, if you're not growing, your company can't grow. If the CEO is not doing personal development and growing in their own space every single day, they can't grow their company past where they are. So as leaders, we have to be always in a growth mode, and bringing our people along and having them do that as well is super critical because it increases retention. Now, Kara mentioned that it's about $4,000 to replace somebody in the knowledge worker space. So that's tech, that's medical tech, that's fintech, that's finance, anywhere where you're paid for what you know. It's about $40,000 a person. $40,000 to replace somebody. Guess what? They've asked for a 10K raise. I'm going to tell you right now, pay them the 10K raise, because it's a hell ton cheaper than replacing them. And you don't disrupt your service, you don't piss any clients off, and you keep harmony in your teams. Now, if they're disruptive, if they're toxic, if they need to go, then we help you I walk you through that. And here's the secret sauce. And Danita touched on it a tiny bit. Transition planning. This is the third pillar in my process, and nobody talks about it. We talk about succession planning for leadership. We talk about succession planning at the executive level, but nobody talks about what happens when the janitor leaves and everybody forgot to get the keys from him. True story. True story. Had closets we could not open because nobody got the keys from the janitor. Not joking. So transition planning. Yeah, I know, right? Holy bananas. Who thought of that? So transition planning is a big piece of it. Now, this I just have run through in a like super fast moment, but it's a lot more in depth than that. But that's the big piece of it. So it's how we bring them in, how do we keep them, And then what happens when it's time for them to not just maybe leave the company, but change positions? How do we reduce chaos? How do we better balance workload? How do we make sure we replace that person with the right person behind them? So that's sort of what I do in a nutshell. And I build it all on our C4 culture, which is communication, which we've talked about, which is care, which we've talked about, which is community, which we've talked about, which is connection. So when you as leaders are creating that level of community, connection, care, and communication, you create the ability to hang on to your people and really advance your company forward. So I've been at this for 2.5 decades. I am super passionate about it. I walked away from it for 4 years because I was burned out, because life is hard in the corporate consulting world. Not gonna lie. We'd had a lot of medical stuff in our family. I'd had some personal medical stuff. It was just a lot. And I looked at my husband and said, something has to go. And it was work, because that was the only thing I could let go and nobody died. But I walked away from it thinking I'd never go back. And I came back to this a year ago with just so much focus and passion, because the world needs to be better. And we spend 80% of our adult working time, our adult lives working.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be better for more people? And if we make work better, does that not make the world better? We make happier, healthier humans. We provide them with support, care, community, and all the things that they need. That makes them better at home. It makes them better at work. It makes them better in their outside community. So for me, it's really about Raving Fan employees is really about making the world better, and making it better for the leadership all the way down to the janitors. Because every single person in your company, whether you have 2 people or 200 people or 200,000 people, I've worked in that kind of company before, every single person matters. And without any of them, you don't have a company. So that's what I do. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hope to connect with some of you. Cara, I'd love to connect with you. There's a couple others I'd love to talk more. Like, I'd love to really connect, because I think, and Danita, I think we just we're very aligned, and I love collaborations. I think that's another piece of entrepreneurship that makes such a difference. And so, Elona, I really appreciate your opportunity to connect us here in this summit, as well as with the bigger audience. Entrepreneurship is very lonely. Collaborations make it less lonely, and it takes some of the burden of having to create, invent, and do off of you as that leader, and allows you to build a community of your own of leadership that is aligned with you. And that's really important. And I work with my leaders and executive coaching piece of it in that too. Like, you have to go find people having similar experiences, because it matters.
Havila,
Thank you.
In perfect timing and harmony, as we take the last minute of this event to kind of connect with one another and send people to the amazing work that you're doing. So Havila, where is it that people can continue the conversation with you?
So I am on LinkedIn every day. I put stuff up there. I'm Havila Van Girl on LinkedIn. That is probably the best place. I have a website. It's pretty small, but it's got good information and a lovely freebie if you're looking to know how to hire and keep your talent in 5 simple steps. That is havestrategy.com. So very simple, havestrategy.com. And if you'd like to DM me on Facebook or in LinkedIn, if you just put Inside Out Summit, that will tell me where I know you from, and we'll set up a time to chat, and we'll get a conversation going. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Cara?
Push the button. I'm very accessible. You can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram, all the places. You just email me at CaraJean@TakingCara.Business. I would love to hear from you. And on Facebook, I'm in Cara Corner, CARA Corner, and that's where I do complimentary coaching. So come check it out.
All right, Elizabeth?
Hey, so you can find me over on LinkedIn as well. Dr. Elizabeth Wygant is how you can search for my name. I'm also hosting a free workshop. It's called Fempire Builders Blueprint Workshop. And it touches on what I discussed here today and then some. So it's 4 insider secrets to go from hustle to flow to skyrocket your success in your business or in your career as an ambitious woman. So you can go on my website, elizabethwygant.com/fempire-workshop, and you can get signed up.
There you go. Thank you. Christine?
Yeah, me too. All over the place. Facebook is probably the best place to find me. That is either Christine Malik or Sassy Coach Christine, but I am on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn
And
as
of
well.
course, the podcast, Talking Sassy About Abuse, amplifying women's voice.
Powerful. Thank you.
SASSI. Thank you.
Don't worry, I'll include all the links underneath the event, so you'll find all our amazing speakers so easily. Thank you so much. And Christelle?
Yes, it was so great to be here today. And if you want to keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, I'm more active. It's Christelle Biga, and it's Christelle Biga on each social media platform. I also have a free list of 100 plus contact information for top tier podcast. If you're interested, if you want to start pitching yourself to be on those shows, that list is completely free. The link is going to be available for you to download, and it gets updated daily. That's another way, a great resource that I have for you. And I also host a workshop every Wednesday to teach people how to do it themselves if they don't want to work with me, but at least I will share the information with them. If to have the link for that workshop, just go on my website, exposuremaven.com. You will be able to sign up for the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny?
Oh yeah, the fastest way is ingersollenterprises.com. It's got all my email, all my social media, everything right there on ingersollenterprises.com.
Beautiful. Now, Kenny's also inside our live school community as well, so you'll be finding him there as well. Awesome. Pearl?
Yes, so definitely you can reach me on LinkedIn or Facebook, Pearl Sharenza. And if you want to find out what your mental fitness score is, you can go to pearlsurvey.com. That's pearlsurvey.com and see what your score is.
All right. Danita?
All right, you guys can find me at dmwconsultants.com right now. I'm in the process of building everything on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, because I've just been so busy with consulting. I really haven't had a chance to build things out, but you can go to my website, be able to contact me, and I'll be on the other social media platforms. But thank you for this opportunity. Look forward to connecting with some of you.
I want to thank all my amazing speakers as we have reached the end of this amazing event. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your purpose and your knowledge and expertise with the world. And thank you for all the amazing work you're doing. I'll see you in one of our next future events here at the Life School. Bye, everybody.